Welcome to NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast, where you send us your money questions and we answer them with the help of our genius nerds. This episode's question comes from Adrian, who left us a voicemail. Here it is.
I'm a recent college graduate. I graduated college in June of 2023, and I'm 6 months into my new corporate world job. I'm trying to save like 25% of my income per month. And I'm trying to start investing. I don't really know, like, what my savings goals should be. And I don't know. I'm down for, like, some high-risk investments, but I don't know. I'm trying to just learn, like, the basics of investing, how to plan for life. Like, I don't know what I need money for aside from rent, food, and alcohol right now. So, I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And, like, what would you do if you were in my shoes? If you could go back in time and be 23 and not have kids or, like, mortgage or anything, like, what would you be doing with your money right now? Thanks. I hope you guys listen to this. That would be really cool because I'm struggling. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
To help us answer Adrian's question on this episode of the podcast, Sean and I are joined by our co-host, Elizabeth Ayoola. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, my favorite dynamic duo. How are we? I'm going to answer first. I don't know about y'all, but I've been reminding myself that this is the youngest I'll ever be, and I have been indulging accordingly.
Oh, I love that. I love getting a question from a listener who is so young, because even though they're only 10 years younger than me, it does feel like a lifetime ago that I was 23 and making these financial decisions for the very first time. One thing that I find really interesting about Adrian's question is that while they are so early in their financial journey, their questions really can apply to anyone because, as I'm sure we all know well, plenty of people in their 30s and 40s and beyond are still trying to figure out their budgets and their financial goals. So with that in mind, I think that our listener and all listeners really could benefit from a little bit of budgeting 101. So Elizabeth, where do you think they should start?
Basically, I think they need to start with a budget. That's going to tell you how to slice and dice your money. So whoever the listener is, you should probably maybe start with the 50-30-20 budget, which we are advocates for at NerdWallet. Or it might be the 60-30-10 budget, depending on your cost of living and where you are. Now, for those who don't know what the 50-30-20 budget is, 50% go to your needs, 30% to your wants, and 20% to debt, paying down debt and also saving money. I do think it's important to know, however, these numbers are not set in stone. It really just depends on your finances, and you can adjust the numbers to fit where you are in your financial life right now. I myself currently save above that 20 bucket, but luckily I don't have that much debt, so that's why I'm able to save more money and save more than the 20.
Yeah, and our listener wants to save 25% of their income, which is really ambitious, especially for someone who is so young. I think when I was 23, I was saving maybe 2% of my budget, and it wasn't even intentionally. It was just by chance because it's what I had left over at the end of the month.
You were doing great, Sean, because let me tell you, I was saving 0% of my budget at 20-something. So that is ambitious. I think it's possible, but it just, again, depends on where your finances are.
I like an ambitious savings goal, especially when you're young. Some of the best advice I was given by a CFP that I used to work with was save as aggressively as you can for as long as you can, because life only gets more complicated and more expensive. So if aggressive for you is 3%, that's great. If aggressive for you is 25%, that's great. And if you have to change it up from month to month, that's fine too.
So our listener is dedicated to being a hardcore saver. And I love that for you, listener. So Sean, I know you're also big on saving and you have some tricks for effectively saving money. What do you think?
So I would start by encouraging Adrian to have something to save for. Again, I'm thinking a lot about myself in my early 20s. I didn't really have any sort of short, medium, or long-term goals or priorities of any sort because my brain wasn't fully developed and I was just focusing on paying my rent and having fun. So I understand how it can be hard to understand what your priorities might be. And this is where I think something that's very woo-woo but effective can come into play. And that is a visualization exercise. Now, if you're rolling your eyes, just bear with me because I swear it can be super helpful. So when you are 23, 33, 43, think about where you see yourself in the future, in 5 years, in 1 year, in 20 years. So maybe that means, do you want to move to a new city in the next year? Do you want to buy a house in 5 years? Do you want to retire in 40 years? Imagine where you will be at these different points in your life and think about how you can save money to get there.
I would not even say that's woo-woo, Sean. I mean, well, I know it's subjective, but the woo-woo stuff has worked for me. So I definitely started doing that in my late 20s. And honestly, the life I have today was a lot of the woo-woo stuff. So it worked for me.
The manifesting is real for some people.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. And if you're not really into the whole idea of manifesting as a term, that's fine too. I mean, you could also think about it in terms of just naming your goals. Instead of just being like, I'm going to save 25% of my salary. For what? So say what the what is. So maybe a lot of online savings with online savings accounts, like high yield savings accounts, you could actually name the account. So you could have, this is the account because I need to replace my car, or this is the account because I need to buy a new computer, or this is the account because that I'm saving up for a down payment on a home for, or, you know, I've been dating somebody and we might want to get married. So I have a wedding fund or whatever. 23 is young, but you never know. And so naming your goal and then beginning to say, okay, I'm going to put this amount of money in this month for this goal and this goal makes it so much easier to stay organized. And there's some science behind it, making it so that you actually are more successful in terms of reaching your savings goals by just naming the goals. So if you don't want to do the woo-woo thing, you could do the practical thing and just put some names on stuff.
Yeah. And what you're talking about there is really like the marriage of the woo-woo and the super practical and tactical, where you can start with knowing what you want and then getting the accounts that can help you save the money for that. So for a lot of people, that's going to mean starting out with an emergency fund, building up over time, 3 to 6 months of the needs budget that you have. That's like rent and medicine and groceries, things like that. And then building out the other savings buckets for things like a vacation fund, a house fund, a wedding fund. I have 10 savings accounts across all of the banks that I partner with, and they are all specifically allocated for my different goals. I know 10 is kind of a ridiculous amount, but it works for me. And what makes it easy is that I automate my deposits into these accounts. So I don't even have to think about it. Like, one of my accounts is only getting $40 a month. And that's enough for me to save to build on that goal over time. But I don't have to be worried about, oh, okay, am I going to have enough for when I need a new rug for my house eventually? Like, I just know it's already going in the background.
Yeah, I love this. It's that concept of reverse budgeting where you automate transfers into your various accounts for different goals every month.
Thanks for watching. I'm Sean Pyles, host of NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast. If you learned something new today, hit like and subscribe and share with your friends. Also, listen to NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.